Hi everyone, Mrs. Six. This is an instructional video for 5.08. I will tell you this video is going to be just a little bit longer because there's a few different sections to this. So I just want to make sure that you have everything you need before you get started. First, before you can even attempt 5.08, you're going to see if you click down here, it is a discussion forum, so it is a discussion assignment. Before you can attempt 5.08, you have to have completed 4.05, 5.04, and 5.05. Okay, so you have to have those completed. All right, so if you've completed those, then you can listen, keep watching the video. If you have not completed those, I'd stop the video and I'd go back and complete those and then come back, okay? You're actually not going to be able to even access this assignment until they're completed. So what you're going to do for this assignment, you have three parts. The first thing that you're going to do is you're going to post your 4.05 simple news article that you worked on with your additions that you did back here in 504 and 505, right? So in 504, you added pictures. In 505, you added your headings and your subheadings, and then you tried a little bit of a different format, or you were thinking about doing a different layout for your article, right? So when you post your article, what you're going to be posting is your article that you wrote for 4.05. You are going to add any pictures in. You're going to add any subheadings in. You're going to add any captions for your pictures. And you're going to lay out your photo, or not your photo, you're going to lay out your article in some other manner than just to put it in a Word document. It doesn't matter if you want to do tri-columns, if you have, like, if you want to do a publisher, Microsoft Publisher, whatever you want to do, just make your format a little bit different if you can, because one of the assignments for this is someone's going to be looking at how the layout of your article is being placed. So that's number one. So you're doing that. So after you post your article with all of those corrections in it, then what you're going to do is you're going to become a peer editor, or you're going to become an editor for two classmates, all right? So you need to edit one classmate using the peer review checklist, and then you need to edit a second classmate using the peer review checklist. The peer review checklist is right here, so you can just click on that. I have it open, so I am going to go through and give you a quick overview of what you will need to do for each of these, okay? So once you post your article with all of the fancy stuff, the pictures, the subheadings, the headings, then you are going to wait for some other students to post their articles to the discussion board, right? So half your points come from you posting. The other half of your points are going to come from you picking two of these editor jobs, and you are going to basically pick one or two students, and you are going to peer edit or do a peer review for them. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to look on the discussion board, and I'm going to see that John Smith put his article on the board. And I'm like, okay, what do I want to do for him? I think I want to be the visual design layout editor for him. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at his article and I'm going to say, okay, how's his story length? Um, it's looks pretty good to me. So I'm going to say it's just about right. How would you describe the headline? I think his headline's too long. I think he should shorten it. It's too wordy. So I'm going to tell him that, right? I'm going to tell him why I think it's just right. And then I'm going to also tell him why I think it's too long and that he should shorten his headline, right? All those photos he added from that 4.05 article, that we did in 5.04 where we added the photos, I'm going to look at those photos and I'm going to say, okay, are they relevant? Are they irrelevant? His art or his photos look like they're relevant to me. What specific information do these elements add to the story? So I'm going to give my opinion on what his photos add to the story. I'm going to say they pull the reader in. I could say maybe they make the reader really start thinking about those specific ideas. They pull at my heartstrings because it's kind of an emotional picture. It's shocking, whatever it is, right? I'm going to write that there. Should there be subheads throughout to break it up visually? So what that means is I'm looking at his article, is it all one big giant paragraph? Because if it is, it needs subheads, right? So as I'm looking through, I'm thinking, okay, well, this article might need a little more work because it needs a few more subheads because it's just too lengthy, right? To break it up a little bit. Or maybe there are subheads and it works well and it has just the right amount. Or maybe there's too many subheads and we're like, you might want to get rid of one or two of those. So as we're doing this is constructive criticism. So when you get someone to review yours, you have to remember that. These are to make your articles better, right? Not to criticize you in any way, but they're helping make you a better writer and making your article better, okay? So with that, then I'm like, okay, well, I did John's and I was his visual editor. So now I'm looking at Sally Jones. And I'm like, so Sally, I already did visual editor, so I can't do that one again for her. So I'm going to do assignment editor for her. And I'm going to be the assignment editor for Sally because she's the second student that I had to pick, right? You have to pick two. And I had to pick a separate job to look at. So I'm going to be the assignment editor for her. So what is the main idea or news value that the story met, right? So I've told several of you guys, all of your stories, if they're local, proximity always is going to be hit. And if it's a recent story, timeliness is always going to be a hit, right? So those news values, you got to remember what the news values are and if they're being a hit. And it might be more than timeliness and proximity. There might be other things that you can look at. So Sally's story, I'm going to say timeliness and proximity. Those are the news values that I think she met. So what's interesting about the story? This is your opinion. What do you think is interesting about it? And then you can add what you think would make it maybe more interesting. You can give her a suggestion. You can say, well, I think maybe if you would interview one more person or maybe add a little bit more of your interview to the article, it would make it a little bit more interesting. Or maybe add a picture or maybe add something. You can always give advice or give suggestions, right? What are the 5 W's and H? And if any facts are missing, note that the reporter would need to be added. So basically, you're going to fill in the who, the what, the where, the when, and the how. If you can fill all those in, so I'm going to say who and what she's talking about. And she could be talking about, let's say she's talking about the mayor of her community. So she's talking about the mayor. And then the what, maybe the mayor during election. And then the where in her town. When this election season in November, possibly. How? Through voting, blah, 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 whatever. Or maybe she forgets the when or the where. So then if she forgets that, I'm just going to type in when, and I'm going to say question mark missing. And simple as that, right? So clarity issues. Does the news story lack any clarity in any instances? So that's when you're reading the article and you have questions or you're confused about anything. So as you're reading, are you like, oh man, I really wish there was more information on this. I need more clarification here. Or if you're reading and you're just completely confused because it doesn't flow, then you're just going to make a comment and let that person know. Okay. So for the point of the assignment, I would be done, right? I would then take, and you can copy and paste it into the Dropbox, or you can snip it, use your little snipping tool. So I'm doing snip. I get my snipping tool out and it's going to take a minute to pop up, but I use that and I can snip it and then I'm gonna do that. And then after I'm done, I can snip it and I could copy it and I could paste it into the Dropbox. Simple as that, and you have the visual for what you need for their not their Dropbox, sorry, it's going to be on the discussion board. So it's in their it's you're posting it to their or replying to their post is what you're doing. So basically, as you reply, you could just drop it into the Dropbox for them, or I keep saying Dropbox, drop it into their post. So really quick, I'm gonna pause and I'm gonna show you how to do that very quickly. So let me pause really quick. All right, sorry about that. I wanted to set this up really quick so I could show it to you. All right, so I'm hitting like this is someone's post, right? So let's pretend someone posted this. So I'm gonna reply to that, right? So I'm gonna click on reply to thread, and I believe I can just hit paste and it will paste right in there. So I did like a little snip and I copied it and I hit post. All right. So, and it's right there. So as simple as that, that's all you need to do. The snipping probably is going to be the easiest way to do it. I would definitely go that route. That way, it probably would be easier for you. You can try and copy and paste it. It probably would work as far as copying the actual section. It probably would work for you. All right, so the last thing I want to do is go over those last two for you. Sorry, just so we can have clarification. Oh, I forgot visual layout editor. We forgot. So you have this one too. Um, is the proper story structure used for this story? So chart, inverted pyramid, etc. So or charticle. So you can basically comment on that. If the person did not use a layout, you can say missing layout, you need to add some form of layout, etc. Right? I kind of made the comment that we're going to be doing that later, so I don't necessarily want you to stress about it. If you want to put it in a layout, absolutely. But if you want to kind of wait to do that, that's okay. So if you're doing a peer edit for them for that, then you can say, hey, don't forget at some point you gotta put your story in some form of a layout. Okay. So the last two things that you have the choice to do as an editor. You could do copy editor. So basically, you are looking at things like, is the headline interesting? What would make it more interesting? Why did they choose the headline? What is appropriate and effective for the story? Or why is it appropriate or effective? So you're basically just answering these questions. Is the article free of misspelled words? So basically, you're proofreading for them. And if there's grammatical errors, if there's spelling errors, if there's punctuation, you can let them know in this box. Are there grammatical errors? So you're looking at that again. Are the names spelled correctly? You may not know if the name is spelled correctly, but if it's someone famous, obviously you're going to be able to tell if the name is spelled correctly. What are the facts? The writer should double check for accuracy, dates, names, and locations. So some of these you may not be able to answer for them because you may not know about their hometown and you may not know of the date it took place, but you may know that something might be wrong. Just perchance, you may know. So if you do, then you're going to let them know. Be like, hey, I think that took place on a different date. Are you sure about that? Is the story clearly written? So what that means, is it following a logical order? Is it easy to read? Does it kind of like flow? If it doesn't, you're going to want to let them know that and maybe how they can fix it. Okay, so that's copy editor. But ombudsman is the last thing. And the ombudsman, basically, you're kind of determining the kind of almost the ethics of the article. So if you choose to be the ombudsman, you're going to ask yourself, is the story fair and tasteful? Does it take into account all perspectives of those involved? Is it balanced? So basically, is there journalist bias? If there's journalist bias in the story, you need to let them know that because that's the number one rule of journalism, right? You are not to be biased. You're supposed to tell both sides of the story. So make sure that it's tasteful and it's not biased. Who might have a problem with the story? And do you think they would have a valid point? So do you think anyone would have a problem with the story that you were reading from your fellow classmate, right? And if you don't, then you could say, no, I really don't think it's not really something that people would get upset about, so I think that you would be fine. Or if it's something that you're like, oh yeah, there's some people who would definitely, I think, have a problem with this. And then you could say who that you think that might be, right? Is there anything the writer of the story could include to make it more accurate? Basically, are they leaving out any facts that you think that should be in there? And then if the story involves conflict, are all sides represented in the story? So this is when you need to make sure that both sides are represented. And then do you think the writer reveals any personal bias? If yes, what is it or is not in the story that makes you think that? So basically, is the writer being biased? Because remember, we do not want bias in your stories, right? We need to make sure that all sides are represented. So remember, you only have to pick two of these to do, and and you have to edit for two separate students, right? So you have to pick two separate ones. So remember, we picked a visual design editor for John Smith and I forget Jenny Jones or whoever, Sally Jones, whoever we use for assignment editor, okay? Um, but you obviously can do any of the four of these that you choose. I just use those two as an example to give you kind of a clarification on what you need to do for the assignment. So once all three of those things are done, you've added the pictures to your story, you fancied it up, you did your headlines, you did your subheads, you captioned your photos, you kind of tried some form of a layout, and you posted that to the classroom. Then, after you've done that, then you're waiting for students to start submitting theirs and do the same thing. Then you go in and you're like, okay, I'm picking John and I'm picking Sally, and I'm going to do visual editor for John. I'm doing assignment editor for Sally. You're posting in there, you're replying to their articles, and then you are waiting for people to reply to yours. The last thing I want to say is, let's say John did assignment editor, or someone did assignment editor for John or Sally, right? And then someone already did that for them. Just to be kind and just to so we can get a spread of peer editing, I would highly recommend, and I'm actually gonna kind of say that I'm not just recommending, but I'm insisting that you do not do assignment editor again for them. Okay, so if someone has already done assignment editor, then pick one of these other things to do for them. All right. The other thing is if someone has already had all four of these done, let's say they've had four people edit for them already, pick someone else who hasn't had an editing done for them. Let's say there's another student who has only had um, one peer edit done. Then go through and pick another student and do the copy editor or ombudsman or whatever. Just try to spread the wealth out a little bit, so that way everybody is getting some peer editing done, and we're not just focusing all on one student or all on one type of editing. Okay, so I am going to cover this in Class Connect a little bit. If you have any questions, please let me know.